Okay, let's get started. Welcome to our Agile Hardware Development Meetup, where we have a special guest today. Joe Justice is the founder of Wikispeed, inventor of the extreme manufacturing method. You've probably seen videos of him on TEDx. Plus, he's operated Agile at Tesla in 2020, which we're excited to hear more about later on. He is also the president of the Agile Business Institute and gives classes on Agile hardware development. I was very lucky to take the class in December last year, and I learned a lot about how Agile is, or how Tesla is operated in an Agile manner. I was super excited to see how Tesla manages to go through development cycles multiple times per day. So they design, build, test, manufacture actual hardware multiple times a day. And Joe can explain how that works. Plus, another takeaway that I had in the class was that Tesla is not only as successful because they're operated in an agile manner, but also because of Elon Musk himself. So maybe Joe can give us some insight into the Elon Musk way of working, of operating, his mindset, and how he understands his role. Furthermore, we're happy to Q&A Joe later on. So he will talk about Agile, the Agile way at Tesla for about 20 to 30 minutes, we think, and then we will go into the Q&A session. We're super excited to have Joe here tonight. We will leave the stage to him in a few minutes and a few seconds. Thank you everyone for joining and have a great evening. So Joe, the stage is all yours.
My honor and privilege to be here. Kathrin, it was wonderful to work with you in the course, even in a beta version of the course last year. Wow, thank you so much. Now to engage with Agile Hardware Meetup Germany. For me, this is actually my dream, direct collaboration with people passionate about the topic worldwide and even based in Germany, a worldwide engineering hub. So thank you. It's my honor, Kathrin and Christian. Thank you for your work.
Thanks for being here. You can see the thumbs up.
Is my audio coming through okay?
Yes, it is.
Oh, perfect. It's morning here in Honolulu, so I will have a sip of iced coffee from a tiki cup. And if people are okay, I see great comments already. I'll zoom in on a palm tree and introduce my mentors. I worked directly with Bill Gates. Later, I consulted to the leadership team at Amazon. And then I joined Tesla as a full-time employee and operated the Agile program there. And I actually love that I put Michael from Cariad, Volkswagen Group, right alongside when I was collaborating with Volkswagen Group, moving towards hardware agility at that time. What I learned from Bill Gates is every business problem should be cut into as many parallel executable work streams as practical. Bill would ask us as the team and help us as the team cut every business initiative into hundreds of parallel executable work streams that did not have to wait on each other. They could finish and be tested at any time. This allowed massively parallel execution and a tremendous amount of speed. At some times, Bill Gates was the wealthiest person on planet Earth. And I think this was why Bill was able to execute massively concurrently as an object-oriented thinker. Then Bezos restricted team size to small teams, in practice, typically less than 6 people. This allowed people to have a high level of psychological safety and personal presence at work. Here's what I mean. If you're in a team of 3 people, it's easy to say, here's what I think we should do, and here's why I might be right, and here is why I might be wrong. What do you think? And with 3 people in 15 minutes or less, we can have a high level of psychological safety and deep personal expression conversation about a topic that allows innovation. The pace of innovation was extremely fast when Bezos made a mandate for small sizes of teams. They were called 2 pizza teams. Never have a meeting of any sort, including any team meeting, where 2 pizzas couldn't feed the entire group. In practice, that meant less than 5 people. Hopefully these are relatively small pizzas for health reasons. Then I went to work for Elon Musk. And I have never seen a company this fast. If you've ever listened to an audiobook at double speed, there's a point where the audiobook speed feels normal. And then if you accidentally play the audiobook, the same one at single speed, it seems slow and strange. That's what life was like working in a Musk company. It felt normal. It felt fun, easy, normal, incredibly fast. And then walking into any other company in the world since then feels like slow motion. Like being in the movie The Matrix, where you could dodge bullets. They seem to be coming so slowly. I'm now on the board of advisors of 3 companies, and it's easy because problems look like they're coming from miles and miles, and kilometers away, and you have so much time to dodge them. In Tesla, the goal was to solve any problem, whatever the bottleneck is, in 20 minutes or less. It was an extreme level of agility, and the entire organization was structured to support that level of speed. Previously, Tesla was famous for being very tiring. People would burn out and leave the company. I believe to a large point this has been addressed, and the situation is actually quite comfortable and loving. At this point, I would like to thank Kathrin again. The book Scrum Master, which includes chapter 10 on Agile Hardware, which to this date is still the most complete writing on Agile Hardware, is now available in German on LeanPub. Kathrin, would you like to say anything about your experience taking the course and moving some of the language content to Deutsch?
Of course. I was super excited to help you with the translation, and it was very interesting to see these many details on how Tesla is operated. I didn't expect to see so much or get so much insight into Tesla in your class. Plus, we were working in teams, and we created our own products in your class, which was pretty cool. Everyone or each team chose a product that we developed in an agile way. And we were really excited to see that happening on a hardware level. Pretty fast, to be honest.
It was my honor to collaborate with you and all of the students who now have the professional credential, Agile Hardware Developer. The course, as you helped me translate, and also Dennis and Michael, is 10 stops of the Tesla factory. And I've just modified it. Well, I mean, it never ends substantially. We have an aerial view of the Tesla factory, and I originally constructed the course around what I did operating the Agile program at each of these 10 stops, like stamping in dies and what that has to do with suppliers, body assembly, sprint review and retrospective, automated test, maintenance model, paint, coatings, plastics, new model development, the Model 3, the Model Y, now the Cybertruck and the new Roadster. What I'd like to cover today is much newer and has been iteratively added to the course since last year, actually just in the last 2 weeks. So unfortunately, Kathrin wasn't in the course when this was created, so she may enjoy this. She heard about digital self-management, which I actually believe is Tesla's strongest suit, the strongest value add of the company, then many of you have heard about how Elon Musk leads by sleeping at the bottleneck. Elon Musk works 100 hours a week, every day of the week, all 7 days. And what Elon does is Elon joins the teams. He doesn't talk to the teams or manage the teams. He joins the teams, whichever is the bottleneck. So he'll join in a mob or ensemble development for programming robots or drawing CAD or working with a supplier that's currently a constraint. Whatever the bottleneck is of any type, financial, software, mechanics, suppliers, brute assembly, whatever the issue, Elon will join that team, and Elon will work there until that point is no longer the bottleneck. And then Elon will move on. Now, Elon's been doing that for 20 years now, making Elon radically cross-functional. I'm not sure if Elon Musk is a genius. I'm not sure, maybe. But Elon Musk puts in the time and the sweat in any area of the company to have a radically competent, holistic view of operations, not by managing, but by doing the work. And when Elon gets tired, Elon rolls out a sleeping bag at the bottleneck and sleeps. And when Elon wakes up, Elon continues working. That sleeping at the bottleneck, combined with the fact that Elon takes no salary. I mean, Elon doesn't even own a house anymore. He just sleeps in a sleeping bag in the factory, wherever the bottleneck is very inspiring to the workforce. And Elon drinks the same coffee as everyone else, uses the same bathroom as everyone else, parks in the same employee parking lot as everyone else. It makes the organization feel very flat. Now, that combined with a mandate where if anyone prevents you from talking to anyone, including Elon Musk, they will be fired immediately. That mandate keeps the company very flat. So you have a very flat company with an owner who is paying you, who makes less money than you and sleeps in the factory. It's extremely exciting. This might be already a good time to talk about sustainable pace. I don't think all of us need to sleep in the factory in a sleeping bag. Now, it works. It's very effective. But what if you want to be present as a spouse or a parent? What if you want to have a side project, writing a book? What if you want to be involved in sports or camping or caravanning? Well, I've been spending the last year creating my lifestyle and recommendation on what gets the maximum benefit of what I learned working for Elon Musk with the least amount of deviation from a standard accepted global lifestyle. And here's my learning so far. 1 hour or more a day mobbing at the bottleneck. This means not talking to the people at the bottleneck, not having a meeting with the people at the bottleneck, but joining ensemble development, pair development, or mob development specifically. I mean, exactly the way Woody's rule explains it, at the point of the bottleneck. And that is especially true if it's not your area of expertise. By doing something like mob with a 7-minute rotation, for example, you'll have 7 minutes where you are trying to do the work, but everyone else is helping you, encouraging you, cheering you on, answering your questions in real time. What that means is your rate of learning is radically fast. In an hour, you'll have a very different level of understanding than any presentation could have given you about the topic. And if you're in a leadership capability, if your organization is not 100% flat, you will have a far superior context to make any decision than you would any other way. If this is done 1 or more hours every day, much of the value of sleeping at the bottleneck is given to you. The next value of sleeping at the bottleneck is you have around the clock development You know when you wake up, the problem will be different than you go to sleep. That prevents solo ownership or working alone. You know someone else or many other people are working while you sleep, and you will get a different problem when you wake up. The situation will be different. Also, it means if you fall asleep thinking about the bottleneck, you have an opportunity for deep learning while you sleep. And often you'll wake up with a different understanding of the problem. So that's also beneficial. Well, how to get some of that benefit another way? Tweet length journal before sleep, read on awakening. I did this when I was at Tesla. It helped me a tremendous amount. Just before going to sleep, I would journal at least a tweet length, sometimes pages, but often a tweet length, so very small, of what is the current problem as I understand it. And the first thing I did when I woke up is I would read that, and then I would get up and go shower or whatnot. That seems to create more of the value of around-the-clock development, shared ownership, and giving your sleeping mind an opportunity to evolve the problem. Digital self-management is the concept where anyone, anywhere in the company can try something new and in seconds have feedback on if that new thing is valuable to the company. That means they don't have to wait on a management review to invest further in a topic. So how to get near digital self-management? This was a massive IT project and continues to be so in all of the Musk companies. So what I believe is invest in digital self-management as a core product of your company. This is what the company means now in this year as Web 3.0 begins, really. Your company is your digital self-management stack, which truly means a software-first company. Again, the goal meaning more and more types of operations get rapid feedback, were they good or not good, to the company in seconds. And this is truly what the Musk companies are awesome at doing. Now, related to this are Agile supplier contracts, which if we have time, we'll discuss in more detail, but I'll at least list it here. And Silicon Valley budgeting. Volkswagen, a month and a half ago, published their 9-year financial plan, their 9-year budget. How agile is that? If money is earmarked at the large level 9 years in advance, that means any significant cash investment, which in Volkswagen case is more than 3 million euro, needs to go through the board of advisors for approval. And they don't meet every day. So you have a lag time to request significant amounts of budget, more than 3 million euro. And the criteria for that financial release is, will it triple its value within the next few years, usually 3 years, if not same year? Well, that prevents many types of innovative problem solving. Tesla does not have a budget. Instead, they do what's called Silicon Valley budgeting, where everyone at any time, real time on their phone, can see how much money the company has left. And they have an efficiency metric for how efficient that money is being spent. And the goal as an employee of a Musk company is to spend money as fast as you can efficiently. By having digital self-management on efficiency, you have complete freedom to spend money as fast as you possibly can on your own. And if your burn rate, how fast you spend money, is red, that means it's below average efficiency for the company. You are then encouraged to use the law of 2 feet to go join a project with higher efficiency or increase another project's efficiency. This is part of the digital self-management, and there's no budgeting. Instead, you have what's called Silicon Valley accounting, where you have runway, or your remaining money, and then you have burn rate, or how fast the money is being spent. And your one goal is to spend money as fast as you efficiently can. This is Agile. When the chip shortage occurred in automotive, which is still affecting automotive worldwide, Volkswagen, BMW, Daimler, Ford, Mitsubishi, Toyota, all had reduced outputs. The amount of vehicles they could produce went down. Tesla's amount of vehicles produced and sold went up because there was no budget in Tesla that had to be reverted, that had to be redirected to address the chip shortage. The same day, people were spending money on different chips and writing new software for those chips and validation systems. Whereas in other companies, there needed to be a proposal, an emergency coalition, a set of approvals, a plan developed, a waterfall plan of in phases how they would onboard and substitute different chips. Of course, that's slow. That's waterfall. We've known it was slow since 1910 when Gantt charts were published. So you have these concepts working together to create the Musk model. What I'm trying to paint here is pink practices being the Musk model and blue practices being Justice Agile Hardware. And what I hope is that more and more companies do take on the Musk model. My dream is there'd be 8 billion companies running at the speed of innovation as the Musk companies. That's one company for every human soon to be alive. Right now, there's around 7.2 billion humans. Soon, it'll be 8 billion. And I hope they all run their own company as an individual contributor to society that's innovating as fast as the Musk companies. Now, these blue cards are how I'm attempting to run my own business in life. And I hope they're almost as valuable in terms of pace of innovation and maybe even more approachable. With that introduction, I'd like to switch our conversation to conversational with Christian, Kathrin, and all of you teaching me. I'm definitely open to learn what you know on these topics, asking questions if you want to, and having an open and collaborative conversation. By the way, today, SpaceX has done what's called Starship. So you have the largest rocket ever made by humans fully assembled on its launch tower. And today, Elon Musk will be giving an update on Starship and when it will start delivering thousands of kilograms into orbit per launch, which is far and away the most mass ever delivered into orbit by a single rocket or even rocket series. So that's happening today to talk about pace of innovation. Truly, many things that humans have never been capable of before, to the purpose of spreading the light of consciousness out among the stars. Actually, this one is super important. Many people feel Elon Musk's management is unpredictable. It's unpredictable if you're attempting to maximize investor return this year. The Volkswagen Group, for example, is one of the coolest companies on planet Earth, and Herbert Diess is an extremely talented agilist, possibly more talented than Elon Musk. But large investments from Volkswagen Group are made on the basis of how will they return a near-term profit to investors, the majority of whom is the Pierce family, mispronounced in many parts of the world as the Porsche family, who have a 40% share in Volkswagen Group. If your primary budgeting criteria is how will we have a near-term return on investment for the Pierce family and in aggregate all shareholders, that will lead you to make different decisions than if your investment is on a 1,000-year vision. Every decision in the Musk companies is highly predictable. It's based on how do we spread the light of consciousness out among the stars? So near term, how do we have a fully self-sustaining human city on Mars? So in the event of a catastrophe on Earth, civilization and the light of consciousness continues. Then so on and so on and so on out among the stars. Elon has taken no paycheck in 20 years. All the money made is put directly back into the companies to spread the light of consciousness among the stars. Now, interestingly, that's made more money than every other car company combined. So by prioritizing long-term ROI, 1,000-year return on investment, the most near-term investment has been made. This makes Elon's decisions highly predictable. There's the concept of electric vertical takeoff aircraft. Elon has said, I'd love to make an electric jet, but I won't in the near term. Why? An electric jet, or vertical takeoff and landing electric vehicle, is extremely practical on planet Earth. It's not practical on the moon or Mars, different atmospheric conditions. So if the goal is to spread the light of consciousness among the stars, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft or electric aircraft is not critical path. It's not critical chain. Diesel, ultra efficient diesel or internal combustion of any type, is not valuable on the moon or Mars or beyond in the near solar system. However, solar and nuclear is. Many people seem confused why Elon also likes nuclear energy along with solar. Well, both are required for deep space travel. So if you look at this 1,000-year vision, Musk's decisions are actually extremely predictable. This, I think, is a key difference in leadership mentality and likely important if you want to try to innovate at the speed of the Musk companies. Okay, now that that's laid out, I would love to make this conversation much more collaborative. I'll see if on this platform there, I've stopped share, so other people can even turn on their video if they like when we're conversing. Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you so much, Kathrin. It's already an honor to be here. Let's have a collaborative conversation.
Thank you very much, Joe. Can you hear me well?
I can, and I just see Michael Aschatz is in the chat.
Yes, he is.
So much of this translation.
He commented.
Michael
Commented
is
on him putting him
talented.
next to Elon and Jeff.
Deserved, well deserved. It's my honor to collaborate with Cariad. If only the budgeting cycle allowed them to be even more agile, and maybe at some point it will. They're phenomenal.
If you're okay with it, Joe, we would go to the first question. And if to everyone else as well, right next to the chat, you have the option to add questions, or you can vote up the questions that are already in the chat, and we will go top to bottom. So basically the highest ranked question first. Eugen had the first question. Eugen, would you mind explaining your question?
Sure. Hi, Joe. Actually, how are the teams at SpaceX and Tesla organized? I heard that there's no real product teams like you would expect in a traditional company like Cybertruck, etc. So people are organized around problems or challenges, not around products.
Exactly. I love the question. If you don't mind, keep your camera on for now so we can talk about it if we'd like to. If any of you, or if you yourself, Eugen, have attended Agile Lean Europe or Agile Testing Days, those conferences are structured a lot like how the Musk companies are structured. So when you attend Agile Lean Europe or Agile Testing Days or any open space conference, there's an agenda, and it says in this room, there's no topic from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., no topic from 9 to 10, no topic from 10 to 11. So you can propose a topic. In this conference room, same. Here's the empty time slots. And people propose even new locations. So by lunchtime at the conference, there's the west end of the hallway by the bathrooms is like a new conference space, right? People create new spaces and they just add them to the agenda. Well, what that means is anyone can propose an agenda item. Say in conference room A, we want to talk about increasing heat pump efficiency in the example of Tesla. Or we want to talk about X-ray testing of our orbital welder in the case of SpaceX. So you have problem statements or opportunity statements. And then everyone is encouraged to use the law of 2 feet, meaning use your own 2 feet to go wherever you think you can be contributing the most value. And you can change at any time. So there are no teams. There's an agenda, and you can add to the agenda. And if no one is on a problem, it's auto deleted, it's gone. And you choose. Now, what prevents people from making something off mission, from proposing an agenda item that is not critical path, which I tried to do many times? I kept proposing Tesla racing. I was co-captain of a race team at the Nürburgring at the Nordschleife, wikispeed.de. I love working with Guido Kramer on wikispeed.de. And I proposed many times, let's do Tesla racing. It was always immediately killed. Immediately. And I would use my law of 2 feet and it was still killed. So why? How? You have to propose a measurement of value. And that measurement is totally different depending on what your opportunity is. And it doesn't even mean it's the right measure of value. You at least have to have one. And then anyone can propose a better one. And if it's majority voted, it's replaced, right? So you organically have, hopefully, a better and better fit value measurement. Well, then these machine learning stacks, this is the part of digital self-management, automatically measure a guess of how much it's costing your team to execute. Well, your agenda item to be executed. And that's measured by who's there, how much does it cost to employ them, how long were they there, what robots were you using, what's a fraction of the cost to the company of those robots, how many cubic meters of volume of the facilities are you using, how much electricity does it look like you're using. That's all automated. You don't have to fill in anything. And it's actually now pretty accurate because the systems have been running for 20 years. So they're pretty good now. In the beginning, I'm sure they were awful, but by the time I got there, they were actually really good, and it's totally automated. There's no timesheets, nothing like that. So you get a value divided by expense per agenda item. And for me, racing had extremely low value relative to the other work. I mean, it actually has many values. Many companies are able to justify financially racing, but compared to the other opportunities Tesla has right now, it was so small. It was immediately kicked off of the agenda, no matter how many times I proposed it. No matter how good a value measurement that I was able to think, it just was so small. And it was valuable, but not in comparison to the other topics. So that is the team structure. It's like you said, it's problems or opportunities, and who's on the team could switch by the second. In practice, many people are in the same group for years, but they could travel multiple times a day.
I see. Yeah, thank you for sharing those insights, Joe.
Thanks for the question, Eugen. Joe, we would go to the next question with the second highest votes. We actually have a lot of questions. That's great. And you can still add questions in the Q&A sections to everyone. The next question comes from Ines. Let's see if she's willing to hop on stage here. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, Ines. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to ask, I guess. Yeah, and thanks again for the, yeah, I have to switch the monitor that I can see you. Yeah, thanks again for the insight. It was really, really interesting. And my first question would be, how does digital self-management look like? You gave us some examples, but could you just give us even more impressions on how it works?
Absolutely, Ines, absolutely. Now, digital self-management has a common library of software elements that are largely plug and play. You don't have to be a deeply skilled programmer to work with most of them. You need to be able to write script. And those continually evolve by anyone who joins those agenda groups to improve them. And by this point, 20 years in, many of them are really good. Then each agenda item needs to propose its own value, right? So they then end up creating their own measuring stack, their own digital self-management stack by dragging and dropping from the library, maybe writing some script. What that means is digital self-management looks very different depending on where you are in the facility. Often the people that made it put pictures of themselves as memes. So funny pictures of themselves in their tool. So for example, there's a tool that shows the flow, rate of flow, and where the bottlenecks are in part of the paint process. And instead of cars, it's one of the people who was there when that tool was made. It's their face, and it dips in the fluid and comes out. And it's all visual. The goal is, it looks like a game on your phone. It should be, if you can, the goal is for it's immediately understandable, it's funny, and you can view it on your phone. So depending on which area you're in, it's a different tool, and you can enhance the tool yourself. They're made to be, you don't have to go into deep code in order to make meaningful adjustments. Many things you can like use sliders and radio buttons to get real-time feedback on the value, the cost. Is this the bottleneck? Where is the bottleneck? And the key piece is they do look different all the time, and they often look very funny, and usually they're very clear. Usually they're immediately understandable. Many times there's a heat map involved. Fundamental to Tesla's machine learning investment is vision. Looking at a video feed or several video feeds together and trying to make some labels. What is there? And Tesla is really good at that now. They're really good at saying, what is in these videos? And is it moving? Then basic decisions based on that. And I mean basic. We're definitely not at your genius partner artificial intelligence yet. But basic decisions like, should this robot move left or right? Probably can make that decision pretty well. What's the safe move? Okay, that is really good because the first criteria is safety. So what that means is you already have machine learning stacks that are really good at what's called auto labeling. What do I see? And have some concept of, should I do something? So you can have these heat maps of almost anything. If a car or parts of a car or a group of people comes through an agile space, well, it's all agile. The definition of ready is what we call it, where things come into any given area, the definition of ready. Laptop cameras, just ordinary cameras bought from Amazon or from a big box store, whatever's on sale, with USB or standard connections, are taped all around the factory. It's very, very inexpensive. And they'll see parts or people coming through, and they'll put a heat map on, judging, do we think this was good or not good? And good is more green and not good is more red, and purple has a special meaning. And what that means is through these machine learning stacks, this digital self-management, you can immediately see, is it trending better? Whatever it is. So if you're trying to improve the efficiency of heat pumps, and heat pumps are flowing in, part of your definition of ready is, what is the efficiency of these heat pumps? So there'd be a robotic automated test, and the goal is 5 seconds or less. So the heat pump goes through, what's its efficiency? And then your definition of done is, what's the heat pump efficiency now? So your heat map will show you more green if the efficiency is improving from whatever you're doing. And judging by your cost, the machine vision detects there's 11 people swarming in here. It knows your salaries. It's nothing creepy. I mean, everyone's paid almost the same in Tesla, so that's not weird anyway. The primary income is stock price. So it says, I think it costs you this much to be doing what you're doing. And the efficiency is 1% greater. That's actually huge, because that translates directly into more range. That translates directly into stock price, almost directly. I mean, range is a critical factor for EV price and value of the company. So the DSM, digital self-management, will tell you that. And it would probably have funny pictures of whoever was in the team when that stack was made. Ines, did I answer? Did I give you something?
Yeah, yes, you did. Thank you very much.
And Joe, there's more questions coming in the minute we speak.
Oh,
so the
wonderful.
next one is from Gerhard. We will also try to get him on stage. He would like to know a concrete example of a problem that a Musk team solves within 20 minutes. That got the most votes in the last 2 or 3 minutes, I think. So it got voted up a lot.
Awesome. Gerhard, would you like to join by video? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Almost. I did see your video for just a moment,
Yeah.
Gerhard. Thank you.
Gerd, would you like to say something? Or we can't see or hear you right now?
I did see you for just a moment. You had a wonderful
Yeah,
beard.
we can see the question.
Okay. I have all kinds of video and picture and journal entries on exactly this topic. Many of these have not yet been said by someone other than me. And I do have a non-disclosure agreement at Tesla. So what that means is I am encouraged to talk freely about anything that has already been disclosed. Some of the digital self-management is already visible in videos tweeted by Elon Musk or by Tesla China. Many of these 20-minute issues, I'm trying to think which of them are now public. Okay, here's one. Here's one that's now public. Sandy Munro is now a world famous automotive engineer and process expert, manufacturing process expert and other processes. And Sandy will buy a new car from every car company, Porsche, the newest Taycan, Tesla, the newest Model S, whatever the car is. And Sandy and Sandy's team will take it apart on video, put it on YouTube, and they'll analyze how this vehicle was produced and the cost efficiency, engineering efficiency, level of engineering, etc. And some of what I'll talk about now has already been published on YouTube, not by me, but by Sandy Munro. So it's in the public domain already. Robotic assembly of cars it has trouble with flexible parts like wires or tubes or hoses. It can work, but it's much more challenging. It's far more efficient for humans to handle flexible parts like hoses, wires, flexible tubes. It's much higher value to have humans doing creative problem solving and not assembly. Humans should always be involved in assembly to ground their creative problem solving, so they're solving real problems. So creative problem solving is always intended to be done within 3 meters of the machine that's working on your step. So if you do embedded software programming for a chip, ideally you'd be within 3 meters of the machine that puts that chip into the car. So you're in context of the thing you're working on, even if it's software, for example. So you're there, you're in the point of assembly. You're typically sitting on the floor with a laptop, in a circle of other people with laptops, right by the machine. A problem that was solved in 20 minutes or less was one of these wiring harnesses. Many people needed to route the wiring harness through different areas of the car, plug it in, test the connections, etc. All the wires were replaced with solid aluminum rods, which from a cost standpoint does cost more than some low-grade braided metals, which is what most car companies would use. But by looking holistically at the problem and not only the cost of the part, actually aluminum as a raw material is cheaper, but you don't have vendors already creating solid aluminum rod wiring harnesses for you, where there are vendors already producing braided flexible wiring harnesses for you. So you can just buy spec harnesses on relatively short startup costs with very low startup costs. Whereas if you're making your own rigid wiring harness out of solid aluminum rod, you have your startup costs, your setup costs, but the eventual materials cost is actually lower. So in the long run, it is a better play. Well, the benefit of solid aluminum rod wiring harnesses is they don't flex very much. In fact, depending on what packaging you do, they don't flex at all. and robots can install the wiring harness. And prototypes of that, and then eventually the final solution, were absolutely put in place in 20 minutes or less. Another example that's been made public by Farzad was an outbound logistics system. So you're in one of the warehouses connected to one of the facilities, and you have like a supermarket, like a shopping center of parts, because the cars change about every 3 hours. So what parts are needed, what version of the parts, what materials changes about every 3 hours, which makes it a very flexible logistics system versus traditional manufacturing, where you have the same parts made just in time or stockpiled, but it's the same parts for several years. Tesla has more of a supermarket system or a shopping system with many versions and parts. Well, the way the logistics are moved, the robotics that move them, the software on the robots, how humans interface with the robots to load carts, key them up into construction packs or cartridges that go into robots, that was many times changed in less than 20 minutes. Sometimes a truck would be late, or you wouldn't know where the truck is. A supplier would lose track of the truck. It was somewhere being processed by immigration authority, or they're not even exactly sure, and it has parts you need now. So you would then change the way the robotic funnel pipes parts to have a possible replacement part piped in. That would be less than 20 minutes. To put that in context, most companies would change an outbound supply process maybe once every 3 years, often once every 7 years. Farzad, working in, well, all over the company, but primarily in logistics, would say they had 3 complete changes of all of the outbound supply process in 5 months. And aspects would be changed, yes, within 20 minutes, every day, every single day. Yeah, so those would be examples.
Thank you very much, Joe. The next question is interesting. Why are there no Scrum Masters, Agile Coach jobs, descriptions, vacancies at Tesla? To my knowledge was added here.
I love it.
Again.
Yeah, hi again, Joe.
Hey, again.
This is Destiny, yeah. So I found this really tricky, yeah, because I'm an Agile coach myself, and then this was an interesting insight, and then I'm wondering and thinking, okay, is this something considered as basic knowledge? Is the role of an Agile coach worthless or not needed at all there? If you can give a brief answer on that.
I love it. I love it. Eugen. Eugen.
Eugen, Eugene, it's also fine.
Eugen. Eugene. Eugen. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. First, when I started sharing about what I was doing as Agile at Tesla, many Agile coaches with deep industry experience said, okay, I want to join. And I said, great. Are you going to come in for water jet cutting? Are you going to come in for welding inspection and grinding? How are you going to come in? And they say, I'm going to come in as an Agile coach. There's no job for you, my friend. There's no job for you. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Tesla is maybe the most Agile company on planet Earth, and SpaceX and Boring Company and Neuralink and OpenAI. What do you mean? And there's definitely desire for Agile skill. Absolutely. So there is, that's not the problem. It's not that Agile coaches don't have a value, right? That's not it. It's that there are no single stack people. There's no single skill people in the company. And there is no one, including Elon Musk, that doesn't drill metal, sweep floors, grind weld seams, apply industrial adhesive. There's no one. And so, I mean, the product is the goal. An agile company is not the goal. The way to make an excellent product includes amazing levels of agility, but you are there to make the product with amazing levels of agility. So many companies have skills silos, like quality assurance. So mechanical engineering does their work, software engineering does their work in skills silos. And then quality assurance says, we have these recommendations to change your practices on the next 2 to 5 year waterfall roadmap. Here's your Kaizen initiatives, and you have these handoffs. Well, if you want to introduce a new product every 5 years or 7 years, that's fine. In Tesla, it's not like you could afford the time to have agility added after the fact by a coach's organization or a product owner team. It's just the speed mismatch doesn't work at all. What you need to be doing is improving production and helping production with your agile skill. And the only way you're able to do it is because you're really good at agile, right? So it's that. So inside Tesla, you don't even have roles and titles, really. Everyone's paid almost the same. But there's roles and titles outside to attract people with the skills they want. And if someone says, well, I'm an agile transformation expert, but I don't want to write code or program robots or load material into robots, there is no place for you in the company. Like there aren't leaders either. Yeah. There aren't any. It's not like Elon sits in meetings. There aren't any meetings. I never saw a single sit down meeting or was asked to make or saw a single presentation the entire time I was in the company. It's just not needed because you're just working. You're at the point of work.
Yeah. So the more interdisciplinary you are, the better for you, I guess.
And then it's easy to be there.
Yeah. I also heard that like promotions are also quite hard at Tesla because people supposed to like get hired for what they're best at. So yeah, just as a side remark.
In Giga Berlin, it may be becoming more different. I've been hearing different things from previous contacts, people I worked with, and then just from Twitter about the culture at Giga Berlin. I'm not entirely sure. It might have more roles and titles. And if so, we'll see if that affects the pace of innovation. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. The next question is from Melanie, and we can actually see people voting up some of the questions, which is awesome. We can see a lot of fluctuations in which question has the highest votes. And by the way, we're about 90 people here, which is amazing.
Yeah, Melanie, would
Melanie,
you like to hear your question?
Trying to join. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, brilliant. Can't see myself. I tried to switch on the camera, seemingly don't know if it works. Thanks for the last remarks because I'm an Agile coach myself, and you basically just rendered my job worthless because sometimes I have the feeling, that's absolutely fine. I think sometimes our job is sticking band-aids to creepy and crappy structures in companies, and that's why we're there. So, and that leads to the question that I've had. My assumption is that a lot of the problems that we see with people and with their burnouts and with being virtually overloaded comes from fighting against structures that are not helping with actually fixing problems, and that people are really detached from being productive and doing great stuff. That's what we sometimes try to fix. And the question, because you started with something like that, saying that it had been a place where there was some symptoms of burning out people. Is that a similar experience that you've had, or is it a different place that you've changed from? And what were the means that you've taken, and what were the changes that you've seen that actually made the company change into a good place to work for?
Brilliant, Melanie. Now, I think you just said a far more important point than the smaller supporting points I'll make in a moment. I think you hit it, is if people are being successful and like delivering innovation multiple times a day, the level of motivation, fulfillment, top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is so good for humans. Humans thrive in that environment that it's far more sustainable to be what other people would consider superhuman. And it's truly because so much of your energy is not spent coping with frustration. In a low frustration, high frequency of reward environment, reward by meaning achievement, high frequency of achievement environment, it is unreal the achievements that humans are capable of, and what feels normal and sustainable. That is far more important than what I'm about to say that supports that. So thank you for making probably the most important point. The pace of innovation at Tesla is most of why it is so fulfilling, sustainable, and attracts so much top talent, because it's simply thrilling, and relatively low frustration. Nowhere is perfect, but it is a low frustration environment for innovation. Supporting that is there are 12-hour shifts at Tesla and all the Musk companies. That means that the benefit is you have round-the-clock development. When you leave, many people would come in an hour early and stay an hour or more late, like I would. I would typically do 15 hours and journal. And I would go downstream of where I was likely to work that day and upstream of where I was likely to work that day, before and after, and journal to have a better complete picture of the operations I'm involved in. Many people would do that. But at the end of your 12 hours, you hand whatever your tool is, your laptop, your wrenches, your welder, usually all of the above, to someone else who's just come in. You don't own anything. And when you come back 12 hours again, you get it back. So you know it's different. You know there's around-the-clock development. You know it's not going to stop with you. It's not your project. It's the mission. So that's the good part. The downside is 12 hours is really intense, right? So what Tesla does now is you work 3 days a week. You work 3 12-hour days, and then you have 4 days off to go camping, learn to play the piano, go swimming, be a full-time parent, be a wonderful present spouse, whatever. The next week, you have 4 days working and 3 days off. And it alternates 4-3, 4-3, 4-3. Now, you can choose to work more than your 4 or 3 days. Elon works every day, but there is zero shame. There is only support, encouragement. I experienced Tesla to be a very loving environment for working 3 days a week and then 4 days the next week. That's important. The next is Elon likes fun. If you follow Elon on Twitter, which is an easy way to get acquainted with Elon's personality, Elon likes memes and funny things. Elon was host of Saturday Night Live, an American comedy show. And I think Elon did a great job. I think it was hilarious, actually, I thought. That's part of Elon. So there's fun and funny things all around the facilities. And it simply makes it really changes the environment and the feeling. The mission is focusing, but it's in a very playful way. There's a lot of dance music. Starship, the largest rocket ever, was stacked. And when it was first stacked, so it became the tallest rocket ever in the history of humans, it's just huge. On massive loudspeakers, they played a Nicki Minaj song that you could hear like 2 towns away. Like, that's how loud this was. And the song was Starships. And the refrain is, starships are made to fly. And Nicki Minaj, whose stage name is written after making love to 3 people at once. I mean, it's a play on Menage a Trois. So like, this is a really uncouth song, quite rude, actually. And the refrain is higher than a mother. And they're blasting this so you can hear it 2 towns away, and it's starships are made to fly. And it's this pounding tech. That's the way SpaceX does stuff. And they have a bar, a tiki bar, like with these, but with Mai Tais in them, at the top of the launch tower. Like, that was a critical part of making this launch tower for the largest rocket, is this bar at the top. So it's very playful, and that helps. So part of what I'm focusing on now is with what I'm calling Joe's Agile Hardware, like the kind, easy version of the Musk model, is the gamification piece to make it actually feel like you're playing a game, which the Musk companies already do. I'm trying to amplify that because it seems to work.
Super cool answer. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Melanie.
And we had a lot of parties in the parking lot virtually in your Agile Hardware class. Next question is from Robert. Robert, would you mind hopping on the stage so we can hear and hopefully
Can I
see you?
turn on the video here? Should be on. Can you hear me?
I can
Yes,
hear
we can
you.
hear you.
There's another. I need to enable the video separately. There I am.
Hello,
Hey.
Robert.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, we are just in the middle of our agile journey, turning the whole company to agile, and still we did not yet agree on how to do this with the hardware. So we are producing little electronic mechanical devices, heat cost allocators, water meters, stuff like that, gateways. So what, to your understanding, would be the main difference for the hardware guys when moving to agile hardware development compared to the traditional stuff where you start collecting requirements and then plan the project and go through all the different stages of the product lifecycle?
Wow. When we're starting any transformation, it was the same for software. If we think about software in like 1979, right? With the extreme programming practices being popularized in the 80s, the early 80s. So you have like paper, and the cost to compile, to turn like handwritten notes of code, to turn that into byte code or even punch cards was a huge endeavor that took months. And people would like check by hand stacks of punch cards and notes of the logic, the paper written logic. Does that match the punch cards? The compile step, getting it into byte code, was often months, especially for a significant piece of software. So you naturally had a waterfall where you would draw freehand what this thing might do. You'd try to write pseudocode. There was no autocomplete. The IDEs were you didn't have an IDE. Your IDE was a notebook, right? Like a paper notebook. And you'd cross things out, different colors. You'd have meetings to analyze the logic. And then you do compile. And teams of humans would sort through the logic and try to get it closer to byte code. Well, what enabled extreme programming was fast compile, where in less than 10 minutes, you would get feedback on, does it compile at all? And eventually, where did it fail? And eventually autocomplete. Until now, when you're writing software, many times the variable names autocomplete, the function names autocomplete, and it's an extremely different experience than developing in 1979. Okay. Well, most companies have not invested yet in that level of digital support for hardware. So if someone's doing a circuit board layout, there are tools that help them, but it does not autocomplete the same way writing C# does, not by a long shot. And it doesn't auto-compile, flow through with logic testing, continuity testing at the same level as a modern software IDE. And still, to compile from a circuit board layout in software to a physical circuit board is still often a 3-week or longer process through vendors. None of this has to be true. So the steps really are to reduce the cycle time, the compile time. So getting a physical circuit board, for example, that matches your CAD, and then improving the digital support tools of the development environment and putting them together. I mean, the fact that you compile on your machine or virtually to the point where it feels on your machine is important. And the fact that it's fast, less than 10 minutes, now, seconds often for your branch or however you're doing it. The goal is to do that in hardware. So there is this company-wide ambition to increase the quality of the digital development tools in CAD, in layouting, in virtual test, in automated test, script those so they're running constantly. So if you're drawing a car door, as you're drawing it, you have red light, green light, or heat map impact testing results as you're drawing it, not as an after effect in a different department. It is as you're drawing. Is this more green than the last door or not? So there's no time spent at the design time getting validation. That is a goal of digital self-management. Your self-managing is the superior. then compile time, ideally next to you is a machine that's milling, usually out of a block of aluminum, but there's a lot of ways to do it, the stamped die set for that car door. So 45 minutes from now, a sheet of aluminum or steel or whatever goes between the die and it makes one of those doors. You know, it has to go through several to get the different chamfers and angles, but you have feedback in less than an hour. That is perfectly possible for a door. Now, most companies will make a new die set once every 5 to 7 years. So you have a 5 to 7 year compile time. Well, you got a lot of time, so you might as well do it in a waterfall with skills silos. That's a broken mind in investment. Why don't we have our own milling machine to make die sets? Yes, that's expensive. It's a few million euro. But how much does it cost you to have that supplier? And what's the cost of delay to not have that part sooner? So in a Tesla company, there's a Musk company, there's no question. Of course, we're going to have our own machine. And it's going to be within 3 meters of whoever's drawing that part. So you see the current doors being stamped and you see the current die set as you draw the next door. You are right there. You're definitely not in an office 2 countries away. And the idea is to then shorten that compile time, because you cannot be more agile than your compile time. So if your current procedure that you're not allowed to change currently is, I'm going to send this CAD model off to a supplier. They will get back to me in 3 months. We'll then respond to their counters. And then they'll get back to me in another 3 months. And net 18 months from now, we'll have the part. That's your sprint. That's your iteration. It's 18 months. So your goal then is shortening that. And something magical happens when it gets less than a year. Now you can do quarterly budgeting instead of annual budgeting. And that's what Scaled Agile Framework is actually very good at doing, is taking something to be less than a year. And then once you get near a month, that's what Scrum is really good at doing. Can we get it less than a month? Because now having self-organizing, cross-functional agile teams with a product owner and a Scrum Master makes sense when you're trying to get just less than a month, like moving from a quarter of a year to less than a month. Now, once you get under a month, Scrum is just too slow. There's too many meetings. I mean, you'd be spending all your time meetings and not doing the work. And that's where you get to what the Musk model is, this real-time self-organization. You get much closer to Silicon Valley Agile when it's high quality. And you don't have a product owner or Scrum Master or events anymore, because they're just not quick enough to keep up with that pace. So that's, I think, how frameworks map, all based on speed of the iteration. So the goal is really engineering practices that reduce compile time and engineering practices that increase digital self-management. That's what I call extreme manufacturing. That's what Kathrin now has been immersed in. And that's what my course is about. But it's that.
Thanks for your answer. Very insightful. Appreciate that.
Robert, I noticed I took several minutes to say that, and it didn't need to take several minutes. What I would love is if anyone views the recording, especially you, and tries to make what I just said a tweet link, because it could be. The actual value I said was, 20 words. If someone can find that and say it better than I said it, I'd be really grateful.
Okay.
But so perfect transition to the next question. In your class, we also talked about autonomous testing, and that every single car goes through the testing line. And we actually have a question on test from Eugen.
Sorry.
Don't worry. Great
Joe,
questions.
I guess you already answered this question by the previous one, because you talked a lot about shortening the compiling time and doing tests. So I would skip this, because the next question is also from me. And, and I kind of have a feeling the guys in the line are already probably angry at me. Yeah. So the question goes like this. I'm way into looking Sandy's tear down of the Model Plaid S. And while looking at the back part of the car, the motors, they said, okay, this looks like really like a symphony of engineering. And this is like an interdisciplinary team is doing this. And you can imagine, like, by just looking at it, how hard it is and how much dependencies are there. And my question is, how the heck are they managing those dependencies across all the different teams? How is this possible? I hope your NDA still allows you to tell us a little bit more about this.
This
Magic.
one's actually easy, Eugen, and I think you'll laugh. I think Agilists will be like, oh, of course. First, here's a picture of the automated testing. So this is every car, as soon as they're assembled, puts themselves through every homologation test. This is critical. If you homologate a new model every 5 years, that means you can't introduce significantly new product faster than you test, right? So test is the bottleneck. Homologation, road legalization is the bottleneck for BMW, Daimler, Volkswagen, Ford, Toyota, Mitsubishi, Honda. So what Tesla does is they automate that. It's called factory mode. And every car puts itself through all required homologation and road legal testing. And every car then has a one-page digital document saying, here's what's different from the last car, potentially. And that goes out for certification for just that car. So each car is individually certified as road legal. What that means is you can introduce any change anytime because you have gated check-in for quality. Each product is tested. Where if you test 1 out of every 10,000 cars, you can't make change between those 10,000 cars. You're restricted. So this is what factory mode is. This is where autopilot came from. If you think of how huge the software, hardware, supplier investment is in autopilot, that was actually all for autonomous testing or hardware DevOps. That was it. That was the only purpose. Later, someone in Tesla said, actually, I think we could at least have some level of lane keeping assist for our end users because we have all this technology already. Autopilot was a side effect, and it's now thought to be the largest profit increase of the Tesla product line of any feature. But that was not its original intention. Its original intention was just autonomous testing. That's how important it is. Of course, SpaceX does the same thing. The rockets autonomously test themselves. The sprint reviews are really exciting as a result. And long-running tests, I don't have the graphic here. Long-running tests are done in farms of huge fields of parallel testing, and new parts are added multiple times a day to the bank of long-running parts. The goal is to approve materials and shapes and not products. So if you say, I'm making a new rocket combustion chamber, well, it's new, but you don't want to wait months for different types of tests. Instead, you say, has the material I used in the shape I used been validated already? And you have this library of validated shapes and materials. Well, that means you don't ever have to wait on a long-running test, or rarely, because you have this ever-growing library, and there's no test phase. It never ends. There's always new parts entering the test farms. The test farms are always growing. Parts that have not yet destructed are still in there forever until they destruct. So you have never-ending test, and it's automated in the cloud and by what's called Dojo, and in the cloud full-time also to do accelerated virtual long-running test as well. So that's about the test piece so you can see it. Then to your point on the symphony of cross-functionality. Well, remember, it's agendas, right? There is no mechanical engineering team or like engine cradle team. There isn't one. Why would you do that? For an Agilist perspective, it's actually truly stupid to organize any other way. And Agilists, I think, get this intuitively. So you have a goal. It's let's make a really compact engine drivetrain package. So that's an agenda item. Okay, what do we need to know to do that? Well, what's the maximum outer dimensions of the motor and how it connects? And the motor can continue to iterate, but as long as we accommodate the maximum outer dimension, then it can continue to change. We're not restricting its development. Okay, how about the cooling systems? How much of those need to be onboard, which can be remote efficiently? And you have the law of 2 feet saying anyone can go to this package group, this package agenda item. So of course, someone who's working on the motor or who recently did is going to be excited to join. I want to see it packaged. I want to be a part of that. And there's no mandate. It's not like Musk taps someone on the shoulder and is like, I need you to go join the packaging team. There's just this agenda on your phone and on these big monitors, and it attracts people who can add value because you're encouraged to use the law of 2 feet. And because there's no ladder to climb, or again, you referenced this earlier,
Yeah.
like there's just not really promotion. Your income is stock price. Like there's no next position to get. There's then very little incentive for you to say, you have to pick my idea, or I need to own it, because there's no promotion. There's just stock price. So you're like, I just want to make great cars. And so it's really easy to say, actually, that's a better idea. It's easy. In fact, it happens multiple times a day. So of course you have a cross-functional team, and it's not even product-based, and it's not coordination across departments. There aren't really departments. To an Agilist, this actually just makes clear, easy sense.
Wow. Yeah, thanks also for sharing those insights. It's like, yeah, really feels fresh to hear so much thought and innovation, how you can organize people.
Or really how people choose to organize themselves.
Maybe a follow-up, since this is my third question. Why did you left Tesla? And my second one would be, why did you really left Tesla?
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, so why I left, and then the real answer. Let's start with the real answer. Is I had about $1 million of Tesla stock, actually just over $1 million of Tesla stock. And my own ethics said, I don't want to be biased by my money when I enter this company. I believe in the company. That's why I'm joining. I actually, at that time and still now, I think the stock is going to absolutely appreciate. Holding it is the smartest thing I could do. But my ethics said, I don't want to be blinded by my cash. I want to go in and see the company, if I can, for what it is. So I sold 100% of my stock just before I accepted the employment contract. Like the day I signed it, I sold all my shares, waited till the sale went through, and then signed, yes, I joined the company. Reuters had been publishing 100% negative news articles on Tesla for several years continuously. Yeah. And I knew the Tesla product was much better than what Reuters chose to say. But Reuters had a financial advantage for publishing 100% negative reviews, not covering any of the positive reviews or positive engineering advancements. And Reuters is picked up as incoming materials by many other outlets, and other outlets did the same, but Reuters did at a very high level, and they're picked up by other feeds and then rewritten to look like other companies' news outlets. So I knew at some point Reuters would decide to buy into Tesla stock and change their narrative to be positive. And that would be an early indicator that the stock price was about to not only readjust, but then jump artificially past. Well, as soon as I joined Tesla, I was in a 30-day blackout period, can't buy or sell stock. The day after I sold my shares and joined the company, Reuters published their first positive review of Tesla. And so I said, oh, it's coming. It's coming like later today. The stock price is going to surge. And I really thought to myself, no one's going to notice if I buy back in. I'm not going to be audited. I'm just some person. In fact, it's not like I had a Tesla stock account. This was my own stock account. It's not even directly linked. It would be difficult to even trace. No one's going to care. No one's going to notice. Joe, you should buy back in. I kept to my ethics. I didn't buy back in for 30 days. The Tesla 5X stock price split happened while I was in the blackout period, and I chose not to engage. So I would have made 5 million. I would have had 1 million go to 5 million. And eventually it actually continued to grow. So it would have gone more. I waited until my 30-day blackout period ended, and I bought back in, and I still made like $500,000, but it wasn't set for life. I mean, in aggregate, had I never sold, and I do think about this all the time, and no one would have noticed, I would have made now about 8 million, including the initial 1 million. So I would have made, in addition, about 7 million. I did do fine. I mean, I did great, but I missed this huge event. What that taught me is I can sweat inside the company if I love it, but it's my job to take care of me. It's my job to finance myself. It's not like Musk is looking to say, oh, you made a really bad financial decision. Here, let me help you. That's not the way the company's run. It's my job to sustain my family, myself. And I could do that with even less restriction outside the company than inside. I could directly influence inside the company. The financial opportunities are actually a little easier outside the company than inside because there's no blackouts. So in many ways, that's what gave me logical permission to leave. As I said, financially, it actually makes as good, if not better sense. I now am even more convinced that given a 10-year time span, which averages out media manipulation of the stock price, it will only rocket up. So if I just hold my $1 million investment, I can then do whatever I want. So I left the company, I bought a condo in Hawaii, I moved to Hawaii, and life has been awesome. So that worked out. Now, then also the reason I left Tesla at the time I did, so we have one, what logically justified it, and then also why I left at the time I did, is my son was turning 4. And I said to all the people around me, I want to take several days off to go camping with my son for his 4th birthday. And there's scheduling according to California labor law. Like Tesla doesn't need this, but California law does. And so Tesla needs to be compliant because I was in Fremont, California at the mothership. We call that big factory. Mm-hmm. And according to the loading schedules for California law, I had to be there. And I talked to my team. I made sure that teams made sure they had what they needed and said, okay, that's why I'm doing it on this day. I'm going to go be with my son. And every human there that interacted was like, of course. But according to labor loading, I either needed to have a 3 or 4 days of not show up when scheduled, which I wanted a perfect record, or resign. And I said, okay, I resigned.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Also the brave move with the stock. Cool. Thank you. Thank you,
really,
Joe.
I mean, that was a kick in the sternum because like no one, not no one, few people had more conviction in the value of the stock than me. So like if the universe were only just and fair, the universe would have been like, Joe, you joined the company because you believe in it. It's okay. But, and also if I had less rigorous ethics and had bought back in or not sold, So I also realized humans like to make fairness. It's good. If you ask like 3-year-olds, is it fair that dolphins get sick because of chemicals people pour in the ocean? They're like, no, that's not fair. Like humans get it, right? We understand. It's an intuitive thing, but that doesn't mean nature is that way. So that also was a good real life lesson of nature is not fair. Nature is nature. So please do your best to have 80% confidence of your ability to continue your family.
Thanks for opening sharing, Joe. If you're okay, we would read 2 more questions. Would that be okay for you? So the next one is from Florian. How do you realize the fast feedback for any suggestion made?
Florian, would you like to join?
Florian is coming up.
Yeah, I'm trying to. So, hi, Joe. You had this point with anyone in the company can bring in suggestions and they are quickly evaluated. I got a bit of an idea now from the other answers, but still, can you elaborate a bit about it?
Totally, Florian. The dream is that from the moment you do something, you enact some change, you change the shape of the door in CAD, or you change the metal that's going to go on the inner pillar of the door in CAD, or you change the way a paint robot does one of the passes, or you make a change to the chemical mix of the powders that go into the paints, whatever. The goal is as soon as you make a change, you would immediately know Was it better or worse? That's the dream, right? So that's the core principle. Then one way to do that is you have a master craftsperson next to you. And they say, based on my decades of deep passion and experience, I think you did a good job. Good job. And that works. That actually works. And they're not always 100% right, because sometimes you're doing something truly new and they don't know either. But at least it's reassuring to know they also don't know. You're, in a totally new territory. So that's one way. Interestingly, most of what humans sense comes from their eyes. Now, there's a significant amount that comes from sound. For example, to test composites, do you have void area where epoxy didn't penetrate the woven structure at different layers of the composite? You actually use a piece of metal, often a coin, and you tap along the composite, and you get a very different sound when there's a void area. So that's also sense coming in. Some things you can touch. Heat conductivity is different depending on the quality of a weld underneath. Some things you need to X-ray and then use your eyes to look at the X-ray. Well, the cool thing about machine learning is now, at least Tesla's flavor of machine learning is really good at auto-tagging. Auto-tagging things humans can see, especially visual, but some audio, and if it can be made visual, like audio waves or like heat propagation can be made visual through heat maps, it's really good at auto-tagging. And machine learning, if you give it enough compute power, is essentially instant. So what Tesla does, the goal is you quickly know, was it good or not good, right? That's the goal. Many of these, machine learning has digitized what the master craftsperson would have assessed, because they're using their eyes and seeing, does the light refract differently here? Or they're listening and tapping the piece of metal, or they're feeling, does the heat propagate? Sometimes all of the above. Well, all of those, machine learning is now really good at doing. What machine learning is not great at doing is saying, and now you should be this. I mean, it can generate a cloud of 1,000 possible variants and do some automated testing, but humans are still way better at creative problem solving. But what machine learning can do instantly is say, to the level of a master craftsperson, you just made an improvement. Good job. So what you do is you get these like virtual pats on the back. And what Tesla's bad at is actually having someone pat you on the back. No one does that, or few people do that. So really, you're celebrating just with whoever's there. You're like, we did this, and then immediately the next challenge is there, right? So I mean, there's an opportunity to celebrate better. Elon tries to amplify this, but really the culture is solve the next challenge now. I mean, immediately, right? So there could be more celebration. That's an opportunity. But how that happens is largely by machine learning stacks doing human level assessment, like robotic probes. And their goal is to, in less than 5 seconds, and often many times in milliseconds, because if it's pure vision, it can go almost instantly, give you feedback. Is the change you're trying to make now better or worse?
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Florian.
Thank you. Really interesting.
Our last question is from Melanie, who we've seen before. How do you measure individual or team contribution efficiency? How do you assess who spent the money wisest?
Genius. And by the way, Melanie, if I'm remembering you correctly, you have a beautiful scarf today. I think you did a great job on how you tied it. That's actually something I've been trying in my free time lately. It's how are these beautiful scarf shapes tied? Man, that is an art. There's truly hundreds of ways. They all look completely different. And I appreciate what you did today.
Melanie, if you want to talk to us, you're still on mute. You can unmute at the bottom of the screen.
Please, Melanie.
Yes, I think I figured it out.
Yes. Oh, a different Melanie. Sorry.
Different Melanie. Sorry.
It was not Melanie at all. Someone else had a lovely scarf. But pleased to talk to you, Melanie.
It's just a jumper, so no craftsmanship in that. But thank you for the flowers. Appreciate that. Yeah, the what sprung to mind is that usually in the old economy that I'm, for example, working for, much of the control comes from setting up the right KPIs. And there's a tendency of having sort of a pseudo control with stuff that can't be measured. So the question maybe is a bit twofold. On one side, what are the limitations for that? Is there stuff that you actually cannot measure? Throughput through an engine, assembly speed, that's something you can easily measure. And is that the solely sort of KPI that you take for making those decisions? Which teams improve most? And yeah, can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Awesome. I did not see an agenda item that didn't have at least a measure. It doesn't mean it was awesome, right? Because when you start, you propose some measure, and it might actually be quite clumsy or a poor fit, but it's something. Oh, now that's crowdsourced. Anyone can propose a superior measure, and if it's voted by simple majority of whoever votes, it's auto-replaced, right? So you don't have to convince anyone other than you propose it, and if the fit looks better, it's automatically replaced. But that doesn't mean everything has an appropriate measure, right? But there's a measure, and we're trying. Then you have fit to mission. And for example, it's been said, and I believe it's true, if anyone proposed anything that brought a Musk company closer to having a Mars base, it would be approved immediately, period, no matter what. It's on mission. And if anyone proposed anything that was not on path to that, it would have no chance. It'd be immediately called, immediately killed. And that completely resonates with my experience. So there's also a mission fit. That said, the mission is human understandable enough. Like, no one at this point is saying what the Mars base has to look like. And is it primarily a hydrogen economy? Or no one's making those specifics. So that means you have this generalized vision of a self-sustaining colony on Mars to the point of spreading consciousness out among the stars. It's wide enough that just about everyone has some idea of what that could mean, and they self-assess constantly. Is what I'm doing in line? And humans self-manage a lot of this to that end, because the vision is actually really well understood at every level. Well, there aren't really levels, but I mean, no matter who got hired in is what I'm saying. Now, many companies have a high cost to make change because their suppliers are primarily 18-month lead time. And even the design is outsourced, and then the production is outsourced, and then testing is outsourced. So they have an outsourced multi-step waterfall, your maximum slow structure. And that's normal because in a spreadsheet, it looks inexpensive, except when we measure cost of delay. Then it's extremely, it's then a very poor choice when cost of delay is counted in the formula. But if you're doing spreadsheet accounting and COGS only, this screw is 2 cents less if we buy it from here, even though they have an 18-month lead time, but it's 2 cents more if we buy it from someone here in Cologne. Well, buy it over there. The cost of delay is not accounted for when you're just looking at individual cost parts. Okay, so when you have a high cost to change, when you have a multi-year ripple effect, then you have every incentive to have a KPI that protects you from making changes because it will disrupt your waterfall and you have a high cost of change. If you have a low cost of change, you're buying your screws here in Cologne. So you could buy a different screw tomorrow. There is no penalty to switching screws. You will get it tomorrow. Or actually, if we wanted, we could go get it in 45 minutes if we really wanted. But our regular supply comes tomorrow at 7 a.m. So very little cost to make change. Then there's so much less stress on having an idealized KPI to protect you from the cost of change. And that is fundamentally the paradigm shift. Now, Musk also wants this to be self-managed. So Musk has said it by now quite eloquently. You know, after several years of trying to say it, now Musk has a short way of saying it. Pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. That mindset makes us all think in terms of how to increase the pace of innovation, and it has nothing to do with cost optimization of a screw. And Musk has been saying this since the beginning. It's a very agile thought process, but Musk took many words and it was clumsy. Now it's quite concise. Pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. Then to support that, Musk will say how you measure that. Now Musk can say it quite neatly. How you measure that is how much innovation is there per iteration and how short is your iteration. Well, that's super agile. It is an agile company, and that is the managing metric. So now you have a consistent wish to shorten the iteration and increase the innovation, which an innovation is change. That blows up the idea of a change control process. The last thing you want is to slow down change. And so there is no change control process. There's no change review board, nothing. Instead, you have automated test. So you know if the change you made was good, and if so, it's in production now. And since every car is tested individually for legal certification, that car's sold today. So you have this system. Now, for a lot of us as agile coaches, agile passionate people, what do? We're at one piece in this system, right? And we're not in control of the overall, like there's still a budget and we're not the majority vote of how the budget is allocated. And so what do? Well, we all have a sphere of influence, whether it's just us or it's a group of 3 people or it's a budget line of 3 million euro a year, whatever our sphere of influence, we all have a sphere of influence. In that sphere of influence, if we start making decisions as pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run, that then brings us to the extreme manufacturing practices and Joe's Agile Hardware. Now it all fits, right? So in your sphere of influence, you can do it. Now, what you can't do is do it in someone else's sphere of influence. So you're bottlenecked before and after you, and you can't. It's not your sphere of influence. So then the next step is to try to increase your sphere of influence. And that's where things like this meetup come in, which is why I'm so passionately interested in being here. And that's where you do internal keynotes, brown bags, hand people my book. I think it's actually a poorly written but excellent book. So hand that around. I'll be honest. As a first-time author, it's quite clumsy, but the content I think is actually excellent. Or play this recording for people who are interested, or a 3-minute excerpt that you think is good. And that starts to, you find like-minded people and you self-organize on a larger sphere of influence. Bam, 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 bam. Now, something magical happens when your sphere of influence does include the budget. Because then you can, if you choose to, you could dissolve the budget and use Silicon Valley accounting, which then there's no penalty to change financially. You're only incented for faster change. So there is a magic tipping point where you cross the chasm. And that's when you have people thinking this way, this level of agility, who are paying people, large groups of people, and setting the financial cadence. That is a tipping point. So it is frustrating until we get there, of course. But at least in terms of our sphere of influence, we can do 100% of this in our sphere. It just won't have that dramatic, awesome effect until we encompass the budget allocation and therefore company policy.
Yeah, very true. We're a couple of miles away. We're actually doing something like that. So we managed to decouple a small part of the organization from the rest of the budgeting, and now we have it in our hands. We can control that, and we can actually do that. And I absolutely have to steal that storytelling, that image of reducing compile time, because that so well explains what we're trying to achieve. Just reduce the compile time. That's brilliant.
Thank you so much, Joe. We will go over to the networking session now. First of all, thank you so much. It was such a great session with you today. Thanks for taking your time. Very valuable input from you. We already received amazing feedback on Twitter and other platforms.
I'd like to thank Christian and Kathrin, and I'd like to invite everyone. I'm interested now on abi-agile.com. I'm attempting that to be a platform that many people are on. Right now, I'm a trainer on that platform. I have these courses and I join boards of advisors. I want it to be more than me. I do have some partners. I'd like a lot more. For example, there's a very talented person I was just talking with yesterday about teaching a 1-hour Agile hardware course that's compatible with the way Musk does things and the way I'm trying to do things. So actually fast pace of innovation for people who want to go deeper in Agile architecture. And I'm intending right now to put them fully promoted, and so you can enroll in their online 1-hour Agile architecture session on Agile Business Institute. abi-agile.com. What I'd wish is for everyone here to think, what's something that you think is a little bit better than an average company, maybe even way better, towards where we're going? Because it's in steps, right? I do think Scaled Agile Framework is awesome for companies that aren't yet delivering in less than a year. And I do think Scrum is awesome for companies that are not yet delivering in less than a month. If you introduced Scaled Agile or Scrum into Tesla, it'd be rejected immediately. It's too slow. But that doesn't mean they don't have a great place in my understanding of how this should work. So if you're a less practitioner, if you're a management 3.0 practitioner like Jürgen Dittmar, I've taken Jürgen's course and I was actually really impressed with what Dr. Dittmar did, or Jürgen Appello, the author. If you do disciplined Agile delivery, if you do your own flavor, if you do human factors, and it's a point in the progression, and as long as you're okay with the destination that I'm trying to go, then let's do it. I'd like to make this a platform. So please do contact me, preferably on Twitter, so everyone can see our interaction. But if you need to be private because you're still part of a client and you don't yet get to discuss publicly, you could email me, joe@abi-agile.com. And we can start that conversation of us promoting your work as part of this continuum. I mean, eventually, I hope we're thousands of people on there with multiple courses being run and around the clock. I mean, right now, I do Europe time zone courses, Europe and Africa, North and South America slice, and Asia slice. And I do 1 week a month, changing my sleep schedule. Sometimes I do more than one a day and sleep 4 hours because I'm driven. I hope there's people that like to engage in a given time zone or more. Maybe it's your evening and someone else's morning, and we become, I hope, a global force for positive change. Again, my goal is for everyone to have their own company. So 8 billion companies, maybe you're one of them and we're partners. And they're innovating as fast as the Musk companies. So to people who feel trapped in an existing company, my wish is you start your own company. Now, we can't all consult to other companies, or we'd have 8 billion people helping nobody. Someone actually has to make stuff. So I will encourage some people to make things, hopefully valuable things. And if these methods actually work, you'll be able to innovate really quickly. So that's the ultimate test. Please make some things, and let's do it. Thank you so much, Agile Hardware Meetup Germany and the global attendance group.